Before we get into this video, I just want to give a huge shout out to my boy CBB, who helped me with all these sets, making them and whatnot. So thank you, bro. You're the best around. Okay, enjoy. Enjoy. Okay, and enjoy. What's up, guys? I'm PokeaimMD, and welcome to a competitive moveset guide, analysis, whatever you want to call it. This time we're going to be talking about SILVALLY. I know you guys have been waiting a long time for this, but I wanted to do movesets on every single type, and in order to do that, I need to experience the different tiers where SILVALLY can play in, and I needed to use a different type. So that's why it took a little while, but I'm finally here. I have it. This will probably be a longer, maybe a longer analysis. Who knows? Well, I have like 5 pages of spreads for SILVALLY, so I cover every single type in this. If you guys missed any of my previous moveset video guides, there is a playlist down below. I encourage you to go and check that out. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitch and Twitter. Now, SILVALLY is a very interesting Pokemon. It's supposed to be the man-made copy of Arceus, which is why its ability is the RKS system. Unfortunately, this Chimera does not have Recover, doesn't have Extreme Speed, and doesn't have Earthquake in its move pool. I think those are all things that would have made SILVALLY amazing. Even Type Null, Eviolite Type Null would have been bulkier than Porygon, or is bulkier than Porygon, and would have been maybe even better in some ways. Obviously not having Tracer download or Analytic, but in the fact that it can recover and, you know, sweep as well. But unfortunately, SILVALLY didn't get any of those. It does have base 95 stats across the board, which is usable, definitely viable. The first set we have here is the Z Parting Shot set. Now, Parting Shot is a move that when you use it, it gets you on out of there, and it also lowers your target's attack and special attack by 1 stage. So their attack and their special attack drop, and it gets you on out of there. It's like U-turn, like going for U-turn without getting off damage, but you're getting off the stat drop. So the first set we have is the Z Parting Shot set. In order to have a Z Parting Shot, you need to use the Dark EMZ. With Parting Shot and the Dark EMZ, it actually heals whatever comes in after you Z Parting Shot to full. And it's not like Memento where it actually gets rid of the Pokemon using it. No, SILVALLY can keep using this over and over, at least for Parting Shot, and it doesn't die. It can use Z Parting Shot once, but it can keep using Parting Shot the entire time, so definitely gives it some use. The set is Parting Shot, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, and Thunder Wave. It's just Bolt Beam coverage. Ice Beam allows you to deal with Landorus and Garchomp, assuming you're going to want to use this in the OU tier. Landorus and Garchomp, where Thunderbolt hits Skarmory, as well as Pokemon like Tapu Fini for a little bit of damage. Same thing with Celesteela, just for a bit. But man, deals, just Bolt Beam coverage is really solid in general. And Thunder Wave is there to cripple Pokemon such as maybe Metagross or attackers like Gyarados I might want to set up. Thunderbolt also lets you deal with that. But it's max speed. I think max speed is necessary. This allows you to outspeed Dual Dance Landorus, which is currently running around. You can knock that thing out with an Ice Beam. Even without any investment after Rocks is definitely dying, maybe even before Rocks. And the idea of this set is to use SILVALLY as a pivot, bring in Parting Shot, bring in setup mons, maybe like Volcarona, like Gyarados. Those are mons that really come to mind when I use SILVALLY. I think Volcarona pairs really well with SILVALLY, but the idea of this is to use it as a fast pivot, max HP just to maximize your bulk, and then max speed again, give you that speed, to potentially speed tie with Tapu Lele or outspeed Modest Tapu Lele, outspeed Jolly Landorus, speed tie with Kieran Black, Pokemon like that. So it's a good speed tier. Next up we have Choice Scarf. This is very similar to Choice Scarf, Alolan Persian, which Parting Shots around. Likewise, SILVALLY does the same thing, except it can be a bit more offensive. It can also be used to clean up a little bit. The set is Parting Shot, Tri-Attack, and either Flamethrower or Thunderbolt, and then Ice Beam. Flamethrower obviously allows you to deal with Scizor, Ferrothorn, while also hitting Skarmory as well. Celesteela, Thunderbolt. Again, Skarmory, Celesteela are hit for a bit of damage. Greninja's also hit, as well as Tapu Fini. Tri-Attack is your stab, though. You want some type of stab. It's not necessarily strong, but it does also have the 20% chance to either paralyze, burn, or freeze your opponent, which is pretty cool. As well as just being stab in general. And then Ice Beam is there again. Landorus and Garchomp are very common Pokemon, so you want to be able to deal with those. Also helps you deal with Salamence, Dragonite if multi-scale is broken. But the idea of this set is to use it as an offensive Parting Shot mon, bring it in, Parting Shot around. Now, obviously, when I'm talking about these mons, or these sets in particular, I'm talking about them in reference to OU, with OU in mind. Keep that tier in mind. I'm talking about that. But you can definitely use it in lower tiers, still being able to hit dragons with Ice Beam, still tests with Flamethrower and whatnot. But it's just very offensive. Max special attack, max speed. The special attack is good because Flamethrower knocks out Pheromosa. Thunderbolt can knock out Greninja after a bit of prior damage. maybe after a Life Orb hit or Stealth Rock plus a bit more. It just needs a little bit of prior damage to be able to knock out Greninja with Thunderbolt. And Tri-Attack is just your stab. And the idea of this is bring it in, parting shot around, bring in your sweepers, or bring in something safely, whereas your opponent has a -1 attack and -1 special attack. So next up we have Choice Band. Now, unfortunately, like I said, Silvally doesn't have the best move pool. However, it does have Explosion. Explosion is really cool. It's 250 base power. On top of that is Stab with Silvally. So a Choice Band is more of a nuke. The idea of this set is to bring it in and maybe blow up on something like Tapu Fini, Tapu Bulu, something that maybe stops your Gyarados sweep, something that maybe stops your Combine Lottie from coming through, though Tapu Fini doesn't really stop that unless it's Combine Taunt or Taunt, because you can Side Shock through that. But Explosion is really cool. It does a ton of damage to Landorus. U-Turn is preferred over Parting Shot just because you have a Choice Band boost. Why not use it? Double Edge is your main stab, though you can use Return of Frustration. But because this thing only has 95 base attack, I think Double Edge is better. Just the pure damage off of that is different from Return. And then Fire Fang is there to be able to hit Scizor and Ferrothorn mainly. It gets rid of those, or is easy to KO on those, whereas Skarmory and Celesteela, they're tanking it. They're tanking it. They're definitely tanking it. But Choice Band, a more offensive option. Again, I think being faster than Landorus is important, especially Dual Dance. You can just blow up on it with Explosion, and if it doesn't pick it off, you pick it off with a little bit of like a weaker priority in back, maybe like Scizor's Bullet Punch. But using it more of a nuke than anything else. The idea of this set is to send it in and blow up on something. Even if they're resistant, they're not going to appreciate Explosion unless their name is Skarmory or Celesteela. Next up, we have the Normalian SD set. So this uses Normalian Z to boost your Explosion. I believe it's a 200 base power normal type attack when you're using it with Normalian Z. Obviously, that's weaker than Explosion, but it's still pretty strong, stronger than Return. So it's using it as an offensive sweeper, or any case that maybe Silvally can sweep. Swords Dance, Return, Fire Fang, and Explosion. Fire Fang, obviously, again, lets you deal with Scizor, lets you deal with do damage to Skarmory. +2 Breakneck Blitz, which is going to be your Z move, into Fire Fang, knocks out Skarmory. And obviously, Explosion is there just to pick off something, but also just to power up your Z move. So Jolly max speed at +1. Explosion does knock out Landorus after rocks. After rocks and a bit of chip damage, it does knock out Landorus. And again, Return is just a main form of stab, but if you are +2, you can use Breakneck Blitz and get rid of something like Tapu Fini. And again, this can also help maybe your Greninja in the background. So it's using it as more of a sweeper. I think this is his best set at potentially sweeping. This is probably its best bet at potentially sweeping, rather. So using it more like a sweeper. I guess Crunch is an option, but there's not really too many relevant ghost types. Maybe Gengar, which outspeeds you, can Focus Blast or Will-O-Wisp you. Outside of that, maybe Mimikyu, but Mimikyu again outspeeds you. There's just things like that. Like, they don't really. I don't think it's necessary. There's another ghost type that I was forgetting off the top of my head, but I don't think Crunch is necessary on. I think Fire Fang is better, especially in OU. So this one is special attacking boosting Silvally. By using Heal Block plus PokeaimMD, you get +2 special attack, and that's really nice on Silvally. Giving it, because it doesn't have access to Combine or Nasty Plow or anything, so it gives it like a special sort of sweeper a chance. And wow, we're already at 8 minutes, so I already know this video is going to be a long one, but you know, buckle down, sit tight, leave a like if you enjoy or you're learning something. But Heal Block stops your opponent from healing, yeah, which is the regular effect of it, but it also gives you +2 special attack. And with that, Surf gives you options to be able to beat Heatran at +2 or do damage to Heatran at +2. Offensive Heatran should drop to +2 Surf after rocks. Flamethrower gives you that coverage versus Steel types. Ferrothorn, Scizor, Skarmory, Celesteela, as well as Grass types. And then Tri-Attack is your normal stab, and this allows you to deal with everything else. That would be Pokemon like Tapu Fini, and just bulk your Pokemon around that don't resist normal. You can also run Bolt Beam on this or Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, but I think Tri-Attack is necessary with Flamethrower and Surf. I think this is pretty solid coverage on Silvally, allowing you to get rid of bulky ground types as well as fire types. Flamethrower dealing with steel types, Tri-Attack dealing with everything else. Now, in RU, I actually went in order with these sets, so I started with normal and then I went to bug and I go all the way down, I believe water being the last typing. So let's go down to the RU tier. Now we have a sub SD Silvally set, bug. Now, if you guys didn't know, which is something I should have mentioned earlier, Arceus system means that when it holds the bug memory, or a memory, it becomes that type. Unfortunately, it's not like Arceus, once again, that it doesn't get a boost from that, unfortunately. It gets stab, obviously, but it doesn't get a boost on top of that. Like if Arceus is holding a plate, it also gets the boost from the plate. Silvally doesn't. So by holding a bug memory, you become bug type, and this makes you potentially a setup sweeper in the RU tier. Now the set is sub SD, X Scissor, Iron Head. Iron Head allows you to deal with Pokemon like Togekiss as well as Diancie at +2. You're doing massive damage after rocks, and Diancie goes down to Iron Head at +2. X Scissor is your main form of bug stab. With sub, you can actually set up on Alamola. Unfortunately, I would knock off Alamola, so pair this with like a knockoff user, Absol, maybe Seismitoad or Toxic user, because Alamola is not 2-hit unless it doesn't have leftovers and rocks are up. But sub SD allows you to avoid Scalds, allows you to avoid Toxics, enough speed to outspeed Timid max speed Togekiss. You can also potentially run Rock Slide over Iron Head, which also is Togekiss, as well as Chandelure, which is something that you do outspeed with Adamant 236 speed EVs. But Rock Slide is a little bit weaker than Iron Head, and you miss out on Diancie, which otherwise walls your set and threatens you with Diamond Storm. So, sub SD, stab X Scissor. This allows you, again, this is your bug stab, deals with grass types, deals with, it's just good, it's not good solid, but it's just neutral coverage. Again, Rock Slide can also be used over Iron Head because it also hits Crobat, but be careful around Crobat because Infiltrator does go through sub and you're weak to flying. Now we have dual status one right here. This is more so because Celebi is in the tier, you can use this U-turn set with Silvally. Now, U-turn with 12 attack EVs does KO Celebi 100% after rocks, offensive Celebi. With 248 HP, 216 Spadef, you are taking on Nasty Plot Celebi. 32 speed is just there for bulky waters such as Suicune. I want to be able to outspeed that tier. Again, it's double status, so Thunder Wave and Toxic. Toxic is good for bulky waters, Suicune, Alamola, Seismitoad, Milotic. Thunder Wave is good for steel types like Metagross, maybe setup mons such as Haxorus. Speaking of which, you have Ice Beam. Thunder Wave is actually really nice on this mon because Silvally does lure in Pokemon such as Crobat. Obviously, if you see it's a bug type, you resist multi-attack or any bug type attack going at it. So Thunder Wave is nice, being able to cripple Crobat. And then Ice Beam is the move over U-turn. You actually have Sassy Nature with 32 speed EVs. I didn't want to negate your special attack or lower your special attack or lower your attack on this set. So that's why it's a minus attacking nature with speed EVs. But by doing this, maybe I could have actually just made it like a different... I probably could have just gave it speed and just give the rest into it. I think that's actually no, it's all base 95 across. It would have been the same thing. But Ice Beam is there because obviously you resist ground, so Donphan, Pokemon like that. You can also resist Wood Hammer and Drain Punch from Chestnut. You also take High Jump Kick from Mienshao, which is nice. Thunder Wave is there to paralyze it. Ice Beam allows you to deal damage to Donphan as well as damage to Crobat. Chestnut, as mentioned, Dragon Dancing Dragons such as Haxorus. Be careful though, Devastating Drake is going to knock you out of +2 anyway, but you can always cripple that thing with Thunder Wave, so it's more of a support bug set if you want to use this. There are way better bugs in the RU tier. You can use just Choice Band Araquanid and just not care about defensive bug, but this is more a support set, and the Spadef allows you to take on Nasty Plot Celebi, which is a threat. So next up, I'm going to move down to Dark. So we have the RU Dark SD set. So this is a Swords Dance set, just Jolly Max Speed. I think Jolly Max Speed is necessary on this Silvally in particular because that allows it to outspeed Adamant Choice Band Entei, Speed Tie with Choice Band Darmanitan, and outspeed anything under base 95. Multi-attack becomes Dark type with the Dark Memory. This allows you to check Pokemon such as Chandelure. At +2, you're dealing massive damage to pretty much everything. Fairy types though, obviously, Pokemon like Florges, Diancie, they can come in and take your hits, which is why you have Iron Head. Also Togekiss, mainly. Togekiss is a huge one. I don't believe... I'm not trying to remember if Florges is RU. I think it is. It's either RU or U. I know it was UU last gen, but right now I'm pretty sure I faced it in RU, which is why I put Iron Head on it. But Iron Head is mainly there for Togekiss. Deals massive damage after rocks and potentially knock it out at +2, depending on what type Togekiss set. And the third move, I skipped over it, but it's either Fire Fang or Parting Shot. Fire Fang gives you coverage versus steals, but Dark is neutral versus steals. Most steals anyway. So I think Parting Shot is a pretty cool idea on it, or a pretty cool move even on an SD offensive set, just because this allows you, if you're not confident with being able to take out something like Entei, for example, this allows you to get on out of there, Parting Shot maybe into your bulky water, take less damage. The good thing about Silvally is that it's actually, again, bulky 1 and 2 in this tier. It takes on Pokemon like Metagross, which is pretty prominent in this tier. So this should actually be instant def, just because if download, you want them to get an attack raise. Like Porygon, you want Porygon to get an attack raise versus you. They should always be instant def if you're playing RU. But Parting Shot is nice if you're facing something maybe like Crawdaunt, and you obviously multi-attack is resisted, Iron Head is resisted. You can put extras on the set, I guess, if you want to deal with that. But Parting Shot is there. Get on out of there. Go into something that can take on Crawdaunt's hits. Crawdaunt's a very, very strong Mon, so having a bulky water pair with this, or something that can deal with Crawdaunt, and obviously lowering its attack stat makes it easier for Silvally's partners to get in with Parting Shot. But extras is also something you could run. Rock Slide is also something you could run because it hits fire types, which you do outspeed most. Arcanine speed ties with you, Darmanitan speed ties with you, but Entei is faster than you, but it has to run Adamant Nature if it wants like extreme speed, Sacred Fire on it, so they have to run Adamant Nature. But that's the main reason why you have speed on this set. So next up we have the Pursuit Trapping set. Because Chandelure is in the tier, and Silvally does have Active Pursuit, it's a pretty cool Pursuit Trapper. If rocks are up and Chandelure switches out, Pursuit does knock it out. So the idea of this set is to use just a max but def set. Because Fire Blast from Scarf Chandelure does not 2-hit KO you. Shadow Ball does nothing. I think 10, 13% maybe max, maybe 15% max, and that's probably pushing it. But it's using it as a pivot. Toxic is there. Wear down Bulky Waters, wear down Swampert. Multi-attack is your main stab. Obviously, this one has to worry about being burnt. So deal this thing, pair this thing with Heal Bell users. Togekiss is great. Deancey is a great Heal Bell user as well. Florges, Aromatherapy, good cleric. But the idea of this set is to be a special defensive wall, still take on Pokemon like Nasty Plus Celebi as well and threaten them with your stab attack, and then have Pursuit, Parting Shot, Toxic again, wear down monsters. But if you wanted, you could actually run a bit more speed on this. In order to outspeed Metagross, that is Adamant max speed, which is the Choice Band set, all you need is 240 speed. That's 56 speed investment, but it's not necessary. It's up to you though, being able to outspeed that. You do outspeed Crawdaunt, so you are able to Parting Shot away, and again, same thing, just get on out of there. But if you need a Pursuit user, Silvally is definitely something that can work as a Dark type and a Pursuit user that also checks Celebi. Another option is also Snorlax. But now we have the Dragon set for RU, and this is just an RU Parting Shot set. Dragon obviously resists fire, has some good resistances, fire, grass, water, just to name a few. I was about to say fire again, but just to name a few. But the idea of this is it has Draco Meteor, so why not drop a Draco? It's pretty powerful with a modest nature. It's just Bolt. It's just Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt allows you to deal with bulky waters, which would otherwise take your Draco Meteor pretty well. Flamethrower allows you to deal with Steel types, which otherwise resist Draco Meteor, and then don't take too much from Thunderbolt. Flamethrower also allows you to hit Pokemon like Klefki. Thunderbolt lets you hit Pokemon like Bulky Waters and Crobat. And then just Parting Shot around. Again, you could run a Timid Nature on this, but Modest allows you to 2-hit KO Togekiss with Thunderbolt after Stealth Rock if it switches in on you, and you do outspeed Togekiss. Also outspeeding Pokemon like Honchkrow as well. Being naturally resistant to types like Electric and Grass is really cool for like Rotom. It's a good pivot into it. Can't be tricked. And Flamethrower, obviously Draco Meteor. So it's just a more offensive variant of Dragon Silvally. It's just really fun to use. I enjoyed testing out this one. I love dropping Dracos. So next up we have Sub SD. Now this set works really well because, again, natural resistance to water, so you can set up on Suicune, you can set up on Milotic, unless they have Haze or Ice Beam, which maybe not Milotic, because Milotic is always running Ice Beam. But Alomomola, Suicune are both Pokemon you can set up on. Adamant Nature with enough speed to outspeed Max Speed Togekiss. Again, that's a benchmark that I like to hit in the RU tier. I don't like to be flinched down. Sub SD, Sub allows you to avoid Toxic and Scald from Bulky Waters. And Multi-Attack is your strongest Dragon type stab. Iron Head allows you to deal with the Fairy types. Florges, Deancey, Togekiss, they don't appreciate a +2 Iron Head after rocks at all. And Deancey obviously dies Iron Head +2 easily. So, just Sub SD attack. Multi-Attack being stronger than Dragon Claw, being Dragon Stab. It can set up on Bulky Waters. It can set up on Pokemon like Entei. You can actually run a bit more speed if you want. You can alternatively run a Jolly Nature with just enough speed for Entei, and this gives you more overall bulk. But it really is up to you. I just like that benchmark right there. But you don't outspeed Pokemon like Haxorus, which is in the tier, so that's why I don't bother going Jolly on some of these sets. But next up we have the RU Bolt Beam. So Electric Silvally, Stab Thunderbolt is really nice for all the bulky waters in tier, for Crobat, for pretty much anything that doesn't resist it. Even the Steel types like Metagross don't appreciate taking a Thunderbolt. And the idea of the set is, again, Bolt Beam, really nice coverage. Ice Beam allows you to deal with the ground types, grass types that otherwise resist or are immune to Thunderbolt. Parting Shot around, and also be a nice offensive check to Pokemon that would otherwise come in on this. Ice Beam allows you to deal with Haxorus, Thunder Wave, excuse me, allows you to cripple that as well as Metagross. This is also a nice check to Crawdon, unless it's boosted, it's not knocking you out. A check meaning you can come in after and then knock it out with Thunderbolt. So I really like Electric Silvally in the tier, being able to pivot around. Also being resistant, of course, to opposing electric types while being able to hit them with Parting Shot or Ice Beam. Ice Beam for neutral, Parting Shot just to get on out of there for sweepers. But in a tier infested with Crobat, infested with bulky waters, Silvally Electric definitely has its place. And now we have the Fairy Parting Shot set in the RU tier again. I'm looking at a lot of RU sets for this. A few UU sets you could use as well. You can use some of these sets in UU, but I like RU. But as UU turns to stabilize and Milotic and Suicune and all those go up, definitely feel free to use it in those tiers. But we have the Fairy Parting Shot set. In RU, Silvally has a pretty cool niche being Fairy that it can take on Pokemon such as Crawdon and take on Pokemon such as Mega Absol, both ridiculous threats in the tier. So with 252 EVs in HP, 200 defense, 56 speed, impish nature. Now, the EV spread was basically maximize your bulk, but have that benchmark on, actually no, this is wrong. It should have just a little bit more. I forgot. Just a little bit more. I wanted, I believe it was this much. It was one. That was this. Now, the idea of this set is because there are Pokemon, scary dark types like Honchkrow in the tier, like Crawdon, like Absol in the tier. Silvally does resist knockoff, and with this EV spread, you do outspeed Adamant Honchkrow, which is the one running around. So multi-attack can deal with those, knocks out Absol, knocks out Crawdon after a bit of prior damage, knocks out Honchkrow after rocks. You knock out Honchkrow after rocks, so that's important. A multi-attack. Parting Shot again, pivot around, but the idea of this is to use it, switching on Absol, unless they're running Iron Tail, they don't deal with you, and they're usually running, oh, they can run Iron Tail because of Togekiss, but that also has to hit, and you have a chance to live it as well. Where normally, if you have a threat in front of you, they're going to click knockoff, and then you can just multi-attack it. Parting Shot, Thunder Wave, because Fairy type lures in Pokemon like Poison types, it lures in Pokemon like Crobat, lures in Steel types like Metagross. So you can cripple those with Thunder Wave, and then Flamethrower, even though you are Impish Nature. I didn't want to give it any special attack because I didn't want to take away from its overall bulk or the speed. I think the speed is necessary for Crawdon in the tier, for Metagross in the tier, for Honchkrow. Obviously, you can't Parting Shot Metagross because of clear body. Like, you can get out of there, but you're not going to lower its stats. But it's just a good pivot, and I want that benchmark. And then Flamethrower allows you to deal damage to Metagross just a bit, as well as dealing damage to Pokemon like Klefki. It's a 3KO on Klefki, depending on rules. But you can also Thunder Wave. But the idea of this is just to use it as a defensive dark type switch in, but being able to outspeed the relevant dark types outside of Absol. Mega Absol obviously being able to outspeed you, but these are relevant types. So let's go on up to the fighting. Now, so we have fighting right here. It's just a Swords Dance set for RU. A lot of these sets are similar because Silvally doesn't have the best coverage when it comes to the physical side. It doesn't have Brick Break, which would be so nice on it. Brick Break would actually be so nice on it. That's crazy, right? You don't typically want a Mon with Brick Break. Like Lycanroc actually functions decently with Brick Break because it deals with Steel types that otherwise resist Rock. But Silvally doesn't have Brick Break. It doesn't have Earthquake. Earthquake would be amazing as well. But a fight has pretty cool coverage. Just fighting type in general is strong. Being able to deal with Porygon in the tier in RU, though max HP Porygon can actually, it's a roll to knock it out at +2, and then defensive Porygon is 2-hit KO'd, but it's not O-code. But I want a max speed on this set because again, being able to outspeed Entei and doing damage to it after rocks, I think is pretty big, as well as Togekiss. The set is Swords Dance, Multi-Attack, Crunch, and Iron Head. I have Crunch because Iron Head and Multi-Attack are walled by Chandelure, so I wanted to be able to deal with that. Also deals with Psychic types in the tier, whereas Iron Head allows you to deal with the Fairy types that otherwise resist your Fighting and your Dark. Now, again, Togekiss, Deancey, just to name a few, Florges, but it's just an offensive, it's just good coverage on a Fighting type. Dark and Fighting, extremely solid coverage. Only thing to resist that really is Fairy, and Iron Head allows you to deal with that. And Fighting is just good, being able to deal with bulky rock types, doing damage to ground types anyway. It's really solid on Silvally. This set definitely needs support. Hazards are huge. Stealth Rock and Spike are really big for Silvally to be able to deal with Pokemon like Entei, Arcanine, and whatnot. But having that speed tier, being able to outspeed Pokemon such as Chandelure, such as Entei, Adamant Entei, I think is really huge for Silvally. Alright, so, sorry, I got interrupted. But Silvally Fire is the one we are up to now. Fire is really cool because Silvally actually has access to Surf, and obviously Fire resists Fire and Grass. Now that's really nice in a tier where there's Entei, Darmanitan, and Arcanine running around. That's why this set has Flamethrower as your main stab. This allows you to deal with obviously Grass types, Ice types, whatever is weak to Fire. Parting Shot support set. Thunderbolt allows you to deal with Water types, which will otherwise resist your Fire type attack. It doesn't do too much, but it's still enough damage to warrant having it on the set. You don't want to be just completely walled by that type. And now Surf is, I think, the cherry on top. That's how I would call it, because Surf 2-hit KOs defensive Arcanine always, 2-hit KOs Entei always, and can smack Darmanitan after Rock. So I think Surf is huge on this. Being able to outspeed Entei, Adamant Choice Band Entei, being able to speed tie with max speed Arcanine or even max speed Darmanitan. Darmanitan is the only one that really you would have to worry about, because otherwise Arcanine, if it's offensive, it would close combat you, which lowers its defensive if it wins a speed type. So Fire Silvally definitely has that place. Also being able to resist Fairy, firing off flamethrowers, but you're just parting shotting around, but being an offensive check to fire types in the tier, like Chandelure, which are locked into flamethrower, like Entei locked into fire moves, and you could definitely run maybe a defensive fire type. I've used that in Ubers, talking about in Black and White with Arceus Fire, but not having Recover is just so bad for Silvally, not having Calm Mind. So I think that this is probably its best set, just an offensive fire type check and fire type sweeper. Not really sweeper, but just special attacker. So next up we have the Are You Flying Togekiss, and this is pretty much a Togekiss set on a Silvally. Being flying type, you are resistant to grass, which is pretty big in a tier with Celebi. So the idea of this set is Thunder Wave, cripple your opponent, air slash them. Air slash is stab. It also has a chance to flinch them. Parting Shot is how you get on out of there. Again, lowering your opponent's stats, as well as being able to support teammates. Silvally definitely needs a Defog or a Rapid Spinner on its side, but being able to come in on Donphan pretty much all the time, since you dodge Earthquake, you don't care about Rapid Spin damage. Stealth Rock obviously doesn't hit you if you're in. Only thing you have to worry about is either Knockoff, which doesn't do much to you, and that's pretty much it, or maybe a random Stone Edge, which they don't usually run. But Flamethrower is your last move, or Iron Head. Iron Head allows you to deal with Diancie, which otherwise walls Air Slash. Flamethrower allows you to deal with Steel types, which otherwise, again, wall Air Slash. I gave it enough speed for Adamant Max Speed Metagross, which is common on a Choice Band set. So Flamethrower is definitely viable on this Pokemon. Also being able to hit Pokemon such as Clefty, and then always being able to switch in on Chestnut, since you don't care about Dragon Punch, you don't care about Woodhammer. Leech Seed, Spiky Shield could be a little bit annoying because you have no recovery, no leftovers, and it can 1v1 you. But being a specially defensive set, take hits from Chandelure as well, Thunder Wave them, get them out of there. I would use Flamethrower, but Iron Head is definitely viable just because it hits the Diancie. But I would usually use Flamethrower because you have the entire tier. You have 5 other slots to take on Diancie. I think Flamethrower being able to deal with Steel types is big, especially when Metagross is running around. So just to support, especially defensive Silvally flying. Now we have a Ghost Parting Shot set, just an offensive Parting Shot set. It's enough speed to outspeed Timid Max Speed Chandelure, which is big because you do knock that thing out with Shadow Ball. Being able to outspeed it after rocks, you knock it out with Shadow Ball. Parting Shot, being able to Parting Shot around, also being able to outspeed Pokemon like Venusaur, which is also something that's that Silvally can take on. It's not so bad versus Sun, being able to take on Pokemon like Venusaur, being able to take on Pokemon like Victory Bell, all of which can abuse the Sun, Thunder Wave them and Air Slash them for super effective damage, or Fire boosted Flamethrowers. But this one, the idea is Shadow Ball hits pretty much everything outside of Dark types. Obviously not normal types, but resistance wise, Dark resisted. Otherwise, Shadow Ball hits grass, it hits water, it hits fire, just for neutral coverage anyway. So Shadow Ball is there, it's your main form of stab. Just max modest special attack, just to boost up that power. I have Thunderbolt as the last move because Crawdon is a Pokemon that comes in on you. You don't want to give Crawdon free SDs. Being Ghost type, you can also function as an offensive spin blocker. So if Donphan wants to go for Rabbit Spin, you come in, you block that, you Parting Shot it out into your water type, and you knock it out with that. Also taking it on. Thunder Wave is there. Being able to cripple fairy types that might want to come in. Thunderbolt is also a nice option because with Modest Nature, it does 2-hit KO Togekiss after rocks. You do outspeed that, of course. Thunder Wave is also nice for Honchkrow if they want to try and go for Sucker Punch. Thunderbolt also hits Honchkrow as well, so if they're not going for Sucker Punch after rocks, you can smack Honchkrow with a modest Thunderbolt. And again, they did this set just using it as a spin blocker but an offensive pivot. The rest was just put into HP. You could go max neutral speed, but I just wanted to put just a little bit of bulk. It doesn't really do, maybe it will be the difference between a kill or not, but that's the speed that I thought was necessary. The rest was modest, so you can hit Pokemon like Metagross harder, hit Pokemon like Haxorus harder, Parting Shot out of there, Thunder Wave setup sweepers. Pretty clear cut what you do with this set. So next up is a Swords Dance set. Now, being having Ghost as your primary stab is not bad at all. Again, Dark is what resists it in normal. So Swords Dance multi-attack. Multi-attack is your strongest Ghost type physical attack with Ghost Memory. X-Scissor allows you to deal with Dark type. So Crawdon at +2 you knock out. Absol cannot switch it on X-Scissor. Absol will go down. Obviously, Iron Head is also an option if you want to be able to hit Togekiss and Diancie in that slot, though Ghost hits really well versus Togekiss anyway and Diancie as well. So not really the best option. I think X-Scissor is better just because Crawdon and Absol are in the tier. And Parting Shot I put as the last move. Now you can run Rock Slide for Honchkrow or Fire types in general. If you are running Rock Slide, I would go a bit more speed than this. I would go Jolly max speed just because you'll be able to outspeed Entei, so you can knock that thing out after rocks with Stealth Rock. Well, with Rock Slide, Stealth Rock being up at +2, so that's an option. But I like Parting Shot because it could still work as a pivot, getting in mods. I mean, it does force him being a Ghost type. It forces in normal types like Porygon, which is why Toxic is also an option on the SD set as well. They're all different options, but you force in mods like Dark types, you Parting Shot around, getting something else, a partner that can deal with it. But this is just a Ghost SD set. Now we have the RU Grass SD. Now Grass can be used as a pivot of sorts just because there are so many bulky waters, but without recovery I don't really like using it as a pivot because a lot of bulky waters burn you with Scald, so you're getting worn down by Scald, by Hazards. A lot of them have Ice Beam as well, so you're getting worn down by that. So it's just an offensive Swords Dance set. Swords Dance multi-attack and Rock Slide. Rock Slide is mandatory on this set. This is your way of dealing with fire types like Entei. Again, after Stealth Rock, +2 Rock Slide does knock out Entei, deals with Arcanine, a weakened Arcanine, of course it does have Intimidate, a Darmanitan, Crobat, which is why your last move can either be Substitute. Substitute allows you to set up on Alomola, avoiding Scald, avoiding Toxic. Scald does not break your sub. I think it needs 3 hits to break your sub. Crunch allows you to hit Pokemon like Metagross, specifically Metagross, because obviously Rock Slide hits Chandelure, but Metagross, you're not walled by Metagross. Thunder Wave is a cool option because, again, being pure grass type, Pokemon such as Crobat are going to want to come in on you, so being able to Thunder Wave them for later, this can allow you to set up later on and potentially beat them 1v1. But Crunch is also an option, being able to hit Celebi as well as Metagross on the offensive SD set. But this can work as just your grass sweeper. Multi-attack and Rock Slide I think are necessary. Last move is really up to you. Now, let's move on to the ground one. Ground is one of my favorites to use just because it has a move similar to Earthquake. If this Pokemon had Earthquake, all these sets would be so much more potent. They'd really be strong, I think. Having Grass physical attack plus Earthquake is solid as hell. And then, you know, that also allows you to deal with Metagross in the same, like, move set. But Silvally Ground, having that immunity to Electric is really cool. The set is Swords Dance multi-attack. The first one is the Swords Dance set. Obviously, Ground Memory. Swords Dance multi-attack, Rock Slide, and X-Scissor. Rock Slide, again, being able to deal with flying types in the air, which otherwise avoid your ground type multi-attack. It's a weaker Earthquake. It's 90 base power, unfortunately. Rock Slide being able to hit Crobat and just Pokemon in the air, maybe a Araquanid as well, which is not necessarily in the air, but after Stealth Rock +2 Rock Slide does knock out Araquanid. X-Scissor is your option to be able to deal with Pokemon, mainly Celebi and grass types. Otherwise, I think Celebi is a big one, though. If it is running max speed, it does outspeed you and it threatens you with a Leaf Storm, a Bloom Doom, a Giga Drain. Any of those attacks all threaten you. But otherwise, if you have it paralyzed or if you found out that it's not max speed, X-Scissor is the way to go. Being able to deal with that mon. Parting Shot, Thunder Wave are all good options on this mon as well. But having multi-attack and rock slide, ground and rock, great coverage all in itself. Great coverage all in itself. And X is just the added addition to be wow, great. The addition to be able to deal with those grass types, mainly Celebi, being able to knock them out. Rock slide allows you to deal with Honchkrow as well as Crobat. Ground support, I think Spadef ground isn't bad at all. With this EV spread, you outspeed added and max speed Metagross, a big tier that I think you should be hitting or should be going for. You outspeed that. The rest will just put into HP and Spadef. That way you're not 2-KO by Life Orb, Jolteon's HP Ice or Heliolisk HP Ice. Watch out for Surf. Hyper Voice you can tank as well from a Life Orb set. Knock it out with multi-attack. Parting Shot, using it as a pivot in the tier. Parting Shot, you already know what it does. I explained it like maybe 50 million times at this point, so you know what it does. Multi-attack is your ground type stab. X-Scissor is necessary, I believe. Again, you don't want to be walled by grass types, but again, you could also run Rock Slide. It's on the tier, but because you do have Thunder Wave, X-Scissor can be cool. If you Thunder Wave Celebi upon switching, you can then hit it with X-Scissor. But Rock Slide is also a good option, being able to hit Honchkrow. If you are going for the Rock Slide, I would give just a little bit more speed for Honchkrow. Either way, you can also always go a little bit more speed for Honchkrow. Just because I'm paranoid. I like the 245 number. But definitely an option. I like X-Scissor for Absol, being able to get the Oko on that after Rocks, knocking that boy out. As well as, again, Thunder Wave is just crucial on this. It's just a support set. Toxic is also nice because ground types do lure in bulky waters, but that's why you have Parting Shot. So a turn you don't go for Parting Shot is a turn like you're in, whereas if you go for Parting Shot and they switch into their bulky waters, you can get on out of there. But I like Thunder Wave a lot, being able to cripple those and checking Metagross as well. Last set, it is, it should have a little bit more speed than this. Sorry about that. I just want to be faster than Metagross. There you go. Last set is a Rest Talk SD set. Ground has some good immunities. Ground has some good, or a good immunity, being Electric. Also Rock, which are pretty big in the tier. So you can use a Rest Sleep Talk multi-attack set with Parting Shot. On this set, the idea is be faster than Metagross. Obviously, the rest is just put into HP, but because it doesn't have recovery in Leftovers or in Roost, Recover, or anything like that, use it as a Rest Sleep Talker to be able to multiple times come in on electric type attacks coming in and or try to attack you. Come in on that, you threaten them with multi-attack, you rest when you get up low, you Parting Shot around, just to use it as a ground type pivot. This one works really well with hazards, obviously racking up with Parting Shot, being able to get on out of there, abuse your hazards. Like for example, if Crobat comes in and you Parting Shot on the switch and you can go into Jolteon after, Thunderbolt that thing, or maybe like a strong water type or like a Scarf Darmanitan. But again, using it as a Rest Talk set, being able to absorb those weak HP Ices coming at you and just getting on out of there. Now, Ice Parting Shot. Ice is such a weird typing. It doesn't offer you anything defensively except resisting Ice and being weak to rocks as well. But I had to make it a set. I've tested it as well. Having Stab Ice Beam is really nice for like Hacksters. Hacksters cannot set up on you. Having that Stab Ice Beam. Flamethrower also being able to hit flying types like Crobat upon switching. Flamethrower or Thunderbolt are the next move. Thunderbolt allows you to deal with water types that will otherwise resist that. Flamethrower allows you to deal with steel types that otherwise resist that. But Surf is also an option to be able to deal with fire types that would resist Ice Beam as well. Ice Beam and Surf isn't bad coverage. Ice deals with the grass, the flying, whereas Surf deals with the fire that otherwise just wall Silvally. So it's definitely a choice because it could 2 KO Entei after rocks. So definitely a decent choice on this mon. Parting Shot, again, being able to pivot around, max speed. You want that max speed. Surf is also nice for Chandelure, which would otherwise take your Ice Beams. Last move is either Thunder Wave or Thunderbolt or Surf. It really is up to you. I like Flamethrower on this set, being able to deal with Steel types, Klefki, that want to come in. Thunder Wave is nice, again, crippling those Steel types like Metagross, but Flamethrower can also be used to 2 KO those after rocks. The only thing you have to fear is Bullet Punch, which isn't super common, but it can be used. Thunderbolt and Surf, I already mentioned why they're used, but it really is up to you what you want to use on Silvally, depending on the team. Silvally appreciates hazards. This one appreciates Rapid Spin as well as Defog support because you are Ice, you're weak to rocks. But being an Ice type, you do lure in Fire types, which is why Surf is a really cool option on it. So next up, we have the Poison SD set. Poison is nice because it's able to deal with Fairy types and Grass types, so decent stab at that. SD multi-attack. I already explained why we have Jolly so many times. Outspeeding Entei, outspeeding Chandelure, outspeeding Togekiss. Multi-attack being able to knock out Togekiss at +2 easily. Poison being resistant to grass as well as its own poison is really nice. Crunch allows you to deal with Pokemon such as Metagross in the tier, which otherwise are immune to poison. Also hitting Pokemon like Chandelure. Rock Slide is necessary because it knocks out Entei, it knocks out Chandelure at +2 after rocks. Entei goes down. It does 80% min, so it does die after rocks. But Crunch is nice, giving that coverage versus Metagross, especially in a tier like RU, which is still, you know, forming. What I'll do later is when these tiers all form, a lot of these mons aren't going to be in the tier. I'll probably revamp a lot of the moveset videos, but Silvally is, thank you everybody, by the way, if you're still watching the video, thank you for being patient. I appreciate it. This is a longer video. I really do appreciate it. It's probably going to be longer than the showcase, to be honest, but I really do appreciate you watching the video, leaving the likes, the comments, all of that. It really helps my channel out. It helps my channel grow. Even a channel having 144,000 subscribers, I believe that's what I'm at right now. You know, I still want to grow, and you guys help me out a lot, so thank you. Thank you. But Rock Slide, mention why, fire types. Otherwise take on and Crobat as well. Crobat's a huge one. Crobat's the main defogger in the RU tier, so being able to deal with that. Watch out for burns, but poison is really nice stab on neutral wise because it hits fire, water, and grass for either super effective or neutral, so decent stab. SD Psychic is next. Really wish this mon got Zen Headbutt because I would put that on poison or at least on dark, because dark plus Zen Headbutt for fighting would be nice. But the set is Crunch. Crunch allows you to deal with the psychic types in the tier that otherwise resist your multi-attack. X's allows you to deal with the dark types. Crunch deals also with Chandelure more accurately. Psychic is cool because even though it's weak to Crobat's U-turn, Crobat can't come in on it because you can multi-attack that thing and knock it out after rocks. Like, you're doing massive damage to that thing. A special set could potentially be ran as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the best move pool for it. It doesn't learn Psychic for some reason, so it's not the best thing you could use on it. But Thunder Wave is also an option. Rock Slide is also an option as well, because while you miss out on dark types with this, like Crawdaunt, you're not walled by Honchkrow. But be careful because Honchkrow's probably just going to sucker punch you anyway. So Xers is nice for Crawdaunt in the tier and dark types in general. Hitting them upon switching, or if you're set up, knocking them out. In Absol's case, it's going to knock you out regardless, so be careful about it. And with the last page of Silvally's, we got Rock, we got Steel, and we got Water. So first off, we have the Rock support. Being physically defensive, this allows you to take on the flying types in the tier, like Crobat, again, as previously mentioned, as well as the fire types in the tier, such as Entei, Darmanitan, Arcanine. You take it on if you're physically defensive. You don't care about their attacks. Multi-attack smacks them. Rest is the first move, which is weird, right? But it's not necessarily a Rest Sleep Talk set, though it can be. But if you pair this thing with Heal Bell users, you don't have to use Sleep Talk. Rest, multi-attack. Rock is just good stab, being able to hit everything. Not for neutral, but at least being able to hit everything, like flying types, for example. This does what the ground type one can't. It hits Crobat. So, Rest, multi-attack, Thunder Wave or Sleep Talk are both the next options, and then Parting Shot to pivot around. Physically defensive, again, that's the best way to be able to take on Honchkrow. That's the best way to be able to take on, which is ridiculous in this tier, by the way. Supersonic Sky Strike, you tank that, you tank Sucker Punch after, you knock that boy out with your stab multi-attack 100% after rocks. But Thunder Wave or Sleep Talk is there. Sleep Talk, Thunder Wave allows you to cripple Pokemon like Metagross that otherwise come in, or Steel types in general. And Parting Shot lets you get on out of there versus Bulky Grounds, which will otherwise, or even Bulky Water, which will otherwise take your Rock type attack, multi-attack, and then they threaten you with Scald. The good thing is this thing is faster than most Bulky Waters, unless they're running a significant amount of speed. So it can either be Thunder Wave or Sleep Talk in the set. If you're running Rest with just Thunder Wave, then make sure you have a Heal Bell user, Deancey, Florges Aromatherapy, even Lurantis for Aromatherapy. Those are all good options. Now, we have Rest Talk SD. Again, Rock is a very solid stab. With this set, though, you want to get rid of Metagross. Metagross needs to be gone. You need to get rid of Metagross. You need to get rid of bulky waters, or at least weaken bulky waters. Put them on a timer with Toxic. That way you can rest off the attacks or get rid of them. But the set is just enough speed to outspeed Honchkrow because you want to be able to deal with that. Rest was put into defense and HP, still allowing you to be a nice check to the fire types in the tier. Swords Dance, Multi-Attack, Rest, Sleep Talk. Rest and Sleep Talk are your recovery. You don't care about Sacred Fire burning you because you rested off. Sleep Talk, Swords Dance, Sleep Talk, Multi-Attack, strong. Comes in on Crobat for days. Doesn't care. Doesn't care. It's a really Rock is really good typing. Next up, we also have another really solid typing, which is Steel. Steel is another typing that can get away with running a Sleep Talk set. And this set doesn't actually need as much support as a Rock set, whereas it comes to bulky waters. Because unless it's Suicune using Rest, if you Toxic Milotic, if you Toxic Alomola, this beats them 1v1. Your Spadef, that way you can take those on. Also naturally take on Celebi. Being Steel type, you take on... you resist Ice, resist Fairy, resist Rock. So enough speed for Honchkrow. Once again, I think that's a pretty important speed tier to hit in the RU tier. Multi-attack is your main stab. It's just Rest, Sleep Talk, SD, Sweeper. You want to get rid of Metagross before you start setting up with this, or you want to confirm that it doesn't have Earthquake, which it should have Earthquake. But you want to get rid of Metagross. You want to Toxic Bulky Waters before you start setting up, because this thing sets up on so much. Bulky Waters are beaten down once they are put on the timer easily. You can also beat them 1v1, but +6. A Steel resisted attack, still not going to do too much, so you want to make sure they're Toxic. Alomola Toxic, Milotic Toxic. So, those specific bulky waters. You need Grass Resistance, Silvally Seal is the way to go. Support is also an option. It lures in bulky waters just because they naturally take on Steel, so Toxic is a good option for that. Parting Shot, Multi-Attack, your main stabs, and Flamethrower allows you to hit Pokemon like Metagross for some decent damage. Same speed tier as the last one, same EV spread, being able to outspeed Honchkrow, being resistant to flying type attacks. Flamethrower also, again, hitting Klefki, hitting Metagross upon switching. Though you are careful nature, it's not going to be doing too much, but I didn't want to lower its speed because I think that speed tier was really important. Like the Sassy one where I added speed to it, this one needs too much speed to be able to outspeed Honchkrow, so I didn't want to do that. But Parting Shot, Multi-Attack, Toxic, again, punishing those bulky waters that want to come in, punishing... Like Pokemon like Crobat can't come in because your Steel type attack hits them. But being able to hit those, being able to, again, switch in on types, like with this set, this can set up on Togekiss. Unless Togekiss flinches you to death or has Nasty Plot Fire Blast, you can set up on Togekiss. And even then, you outspeed Togekiss that aren't running max speed. But it's more of a pivot, especially defensive wall, really, that could take on Celebi. Does take Earth Powers, Parting Shots on out of there, gets in your Crobat. Maybe you could bring in this thing on like if you think Celebi's going for Psychic, bring it in, Parting Shot on out of there, bring out Crobat. You're good. Next up, we have the Water Parting Shot set. Now, an offensive check to Fire types is big. An offensive check to Ground types is big. This thing, Water Silvally, runs Surf. Surf is your strongest stab, being able to smack Pokemon like Entei, Rhyperior, bulky grounds, bulky fire types, as I mentioned. Parting Shot, it's a Parting Shot set, so lets you pivot around. Thunderbolt is your next move because this allows you to not be walled by your own kind by water types. So Thunderbolt does some damage with hazards up, and then Ice Beam allows you to hit grass types, which otherwise wall this, as well as not letting Pokemon like Haxorus set up on you. That's a big thing in the tier. You don't want to let Haxorus set up. That boy's a monster. As well as hitting Chestnut, Celebi, Crobat all in the same move, and Haxorus. So hitting Dragon types all in the same move. Also hitting Rotom Cut in the same move. So that's why Ice Beam is important. Now, water support, you can run defensive. I think defensive is definitely an option because of the fire types in the tier. But the idea of this is Parting Shot, Surf, Toxic to be able to hit opposing bulky waters that might want to come in. Grass types, putting those things on tire. Maybe like Arachne, if it wants to come in, you hit that thing with a Toxic, hit that thing with a Parting Shot. You can actually switch out. And then Ice Beam again. You don't want to give something like Haxorus free setup. Haxorus is a threat. You don't want to give that boy free setup, while also hitting Crobat and grass types in the process. So Silvally, we're actually done. Definitely pair this thing with ground types. It's pretty simple what you pair the Mons with. I talked about a lot of Mons. Clerics are good with support. On the defensive set, I again did outspeed Metagross because Surf is doing a ton of Metagross, and you resist the Meteor Mash coming out, and you take Earthquakes, and you can take that headbutts. But just enough speed for that. Another option is also Thunderbolt on Silvally if you want to be able to deal with Crobat on this set. That can be ran over Toxic. I would not get rid of Ice Beam. I think hitting Haxorus is huge. You don't want that boy to set up, even if you have Parting Shot, man. Partner Shot might be enough to deal with it though, but Thunderbolt is definitely an option on this, and you can slash it. But our Silvally, all in all, would be so much better if it had Recover, if it had Swords, and plus Extreme Speed, if it had Earthquake, all that stuff in its arsenal. All of that, I think, would make Silvally a better Pokemon. But it's a really fun Pokemon to use. I definitely encourage you to use it. You can try out any of these sets. You can even make your own. But these are the sets that I've tested all of them, tried them all out, and that's why it took me so long. But I've tested them all. And yeah, hopefully the Silvally Showcase is good, because I have not recorded it, which I probably should have. But hope you guys all enjoyed. Of course, like I said, it was a really, really long video. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Goodbye.